Hello everyone, welcome to the Global Summit. I am Possible, Soy Posible, an event to inspire you to have the courage to be yourself and together to create a heart-centered revolution. My name is Mar Guerrero and I'm the founder of Alma Kemi. And today I'm very excited to have with us Dionne Ruff-Sloan. She is an elemental wisdom mentor and oracle reader. She engages creativity, spirituality, and productivity so we can live our best life. And she's deeply committed to doing her soul work so that she can serve not only herself, but others too. Today, she's going to be sharing with us the topic, Move It, fine-tune your inner compass through movement and dance. So welcome, Dionne.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. And I would love to start with your own journey. How did you start into sharing your wisdom? What was your own process?
Yeah. So I think like a lot of people, I've had kind of this winding road that, you know, I started being interested in this and that and started questioning, right? I came from a Catholic background, and as I became an adult, I started questioning. I felt there was an emptiness that I felt. And of course, that led me on to that I feel like it's the start of the journey for me. And through all of my research and all of my own personal investigations, I discovered the divine feminine. And in that process, I discovered that as priestesses of the divine feminine, they moved, they danced, they celebrated, they learned as much from joy and the joy of being in their bodies as they did from, you know, observing the sky, observing these things. They were very, it was a very experiential thing, very much in tune with their own personal rhythms and the rhythms found in nature. And unfortunately, as the Catholic Church progressed, they kind of, I feel like they got scared of that power. They got scared of that because then they didn't, I feel like some of them didn't understand it, or some of them didn't understand how to mesh it with what they were being told from these other sources. And so now here we are in this time, in this place where we're reclaiming that, where we're reclaiming the getting into the body and learning from as much from joy, from experiencing the joy in our own bodies, releasing that shame and that guilt and all of the things that had been piled on to us from all of those things. And so as I stepped into my own personal priestess training, through the Nicole Christine lineage, they were dancing priestesses. Everything that we did, we would talk about these things, we would journal with them, but then we would also dance them so that we would have this embodied sense of these higher thoughts, astrology, and that was part of the mystery that unfolded for me. And so here I am encouraging people and reminding people that, you know, movement is our is a natural way for us to learn to connect with all of these things that are being remembered.
So beautiful. I'm in the similar situation as well. It's like all these higher concepts, how we bring it here and we enjoy them. And as well, because the summit is in English and Spanish, so there will be a lot of people watching us who have a Catholic background as well. And there is this guilt with the body and blame. Our own, my personal, I also have a Catholic background. And it's difficult sometimes to move from there. So how do you think we can reconcile these two sides?
I think we reconcile these things by remembering that it's all part of your sacred practice. I think that's the important thing, that that we know from a scientific place that if you're not moving, your body starts to break down, right? They're always telling us, get more exercise, you've got to get up, and our current lifestyle has us all sitting a lot, right? So we're in our houses, we're not out in nature, we're not moving, and even compounded by everything with the pandemic. So if we can remember that movement is not separate from the sacred. If our whole entire life is a sacred practice, then of course movement is a sacred practice. And inviting that sacredness that we feel from these other teachings into a movement practice really elevates our understanding of the sacred practice, but also elevates that connection so that it becomes a marriage. It becomes deeply enrooted and connected once again, like it used to be, I believe, because dancing was always part of sacred celebrations.
Yeah, and with the mysteries in the past, and and it's changing so much now that we are remembering what you were saying. We are remembering. It's not so much about learning as it is about remembering what we already know. And why do you think it's so important also at this time of crisis? Like, we also use more and more technology. For me, my experience this year, because I work with a computer, it has been very difficult for my body. Very difficult. And I love dancing. I always have danced, but I also love dancing with people in physical context, like in a group. You can do it online, but it's not exactly the same. So how was your experience to share this wisdom through the computer?
I think that is another skill that we're being called to develop, because just in the way that technology allows us to connect, over in ways that we couldn't. You're being in Spain, me being in the south of the United States, we would not have been able to dance together. But this allows us to dance together. And one of the things that I love about connecting in this way on the computer is that we can when we bring these sacred practices, when we hold a sacred breath together, when we hold each other's intentions, when we speak each other's intentions, when we create that space for ourselves, and then invite the imaginal realm, the air realm, invite the vision of us being together in circle. And how would we move even in our own spaces? How would we move together if you were if I was there physically with you? I think a lot of it comes through from the imagination, and that's where, I believe that is where spirit connects with us, because where did the imagination for the technology that we use, where did that come from? Where did the idea come from? So we tap into that wellspring of possibility that is available. Somebody had to visualize one day that there's going to be this World Wide Web where there would be no actual wires connecting us, but somehow we would be connected. Amazing.
It's amazing. You think about it, it's like if our grandparents or great-grandparents just see us now, they will be like, this is magic. This is how they're doing that.
Stuff that you only see on the movies.
Yeah. So, and now it's our lives, and it's the most normal thing in the world.
Yeah, and it's no big deal, and we adjust to it. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about being a human being in this time, is that we know from the past, we know from our ancestors, from our grandparents, our great-grandparents, everybody adjusted in order for us to be here in this time, in this place. And so as these challenging, hard things have come through from 2020, we know that we have the capacity, we have the space to be able to envision something new. And so since we are in this place of stillness, sometimes of being separated from each other, we now get to envision what we want to come out of this looking like, as our own connection to the people immediately with us, as our connection to the people in the countries and the states and the countries, as human beings. What do we want to look like as a human family after all of this?
Yeah.
And I believe that we can do that if we get moving. We can't sit and think about what it is. How do we physically want to be able to move? And physically moving, getting up, putting on some music that really drives you, really moves your body, allows you to connect with that field of possibility of what is possible for you that you might not even be able to imagine for yourself right now. But in movement, in putting on that music and connecting with the spiritual realm and connecting with all of the spiritual teachings that you have learned and dancing with them, wow, it opens up so many more possibilities for us than we could not have thought possible for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a very important message for the people who are struggling at the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Financial loss, with
Mm-hmm.
physical loss, with someone who died, or especially economically, is going to be quite, it's already challenging, but in the future, I think we are going to see the consequences in the long term a little bit. And that is asking us to, maybe what we feel very sad that we lost, it wasn't really the best that we can do. So now,
right,
when we lost it, we have the opportunity to create something different. But then we are scared because we don't know yet what that is.
Yeah.
And the thing is that we will, normally with the mysteries, it doesn't come in a full picture, right? Like it comes one step at a time, and then you start walking, and then you start seeing more and more. It doesn't come like, that's it, and this is how it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's not, and it's totally not linear either. It's not like, okay, if you do this, then it's going to be a straight path to this. It's always kind of this winding path. And I think, I remember a friend of mine said this, that sometimes the worst thing that happens, when you look back at it, it ends up being the best thing that could have happened. And so when it doesn't, right now, that is definitely doesn't feel like that for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I have seen so much good, so much of people being awakened out of the stupor that we've all been in. It's like, how in the movies sometimes they say, oh, well, they've broken the magic, they've broken the spell, yay, and there's this big celebration because they've broken the spell. A spell has been broken that we have continued to reinforce. And so now that we are awakened, now that this spell has been broken, we don't know how to move. It's like we've been asleep for so long. What has happened? How did this happen? How did we get here? And what do we want to do to move forward? Why don't we dance for a little bit and just, to shake all of that off so that we can see what is possible on the other side.
Yeah. And can you share also about that somatic part, because it's exactly what you're saying, but with different feelings, like how it can help us to feel our sadness, our anger, etc.
So for me, my first real experience of having movement really helped to release anger was when my mother died 10 years ago. And I had just completed the training to be a priestess. And my priestess mentor, I told her how angry I was, and I didn't understand because I was angry at my mom for passing away, for going beyond the veil. I some days I accepted it, other days I did not, and I just had this anger that kept coming up. And she told me, use your priestess tools. We danced for a reason. And she immediately put on a piece of music and left me in her studio and told me to dance. And she just put the music on repeat. And I did. I moved with it. I screamed. I stomped my feet. I shook my fists at the sky. I cried. I sweated. I banged on the floor. All of the movements that we're kind of told not to do, I was really helpful, that just her telling me, dance, here's some music, I'll see you on the other side. Don't come out until you have gotten it all out. And that was powerful. So powerful. So helpful. I think it helped me to get underneath all of that, because what I discovered for myself in that moment was that I could not be angry at her for leaving if I didn't have deep love for her for being. And so I moved until I got to that place of that deep love, because underneath all of it is, that connection to deep love. The sadness was because the sadness of the loss was because of the love was so deep. The anger from the loss was because the love was so deep. And I don't think I could have done that just by sitting and journaling, meditation, all of those I did, but that piece about dancing, that became a healing medicine for me. And so, and that involved all of my body, that involved all of my senses, that involved, I do a lot of elemental work, so that involved all of the elements, the earth, my body, the air, my breath, the fire of my heart beating as I was dancing so furiously, getting the blood pumping through my body, the sweat, the tears was the water, and my whole spirit expressing the deep sadness, the deep grief that I had from my mother passing. So I would highly recommend for anyone who is going through any of the heartache, trying to heal from any trauma, and we all have traumas that we're healing from, any of that, put on a piece of music. Sometimes it needs to be hard, driving fast, boom, 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 drums, tribal stuff. Sometimes it might need to be slow, beautiful, allowing you to access emotions that you have not been able to touch any other way.
Yeah.
Powerful, absolutely
yes.
powerful.
Yeah, because talking about it is not enough. It's just not enough.
It's not enough.
The idea of the psychotherapy, that when you have any trauma, you just talk about it and then you can go there forever, and you're just keep going in around and around the same stories. And it's like, how do you move from that story, and how do you transform the story? Whatever trauma we all have, that is also a blessing in disguise, and it's very hard to see it. It's very hard to see it when you are in the middle of it, but then at some point that is your gift to the world, because you are able to help people who have experienced something similar. And but then it's like, talking about it is not enough. So through movement and breath work and all more somatic experiences, it's much deeper, that we can and also embody that, like an spirituality, that you are that energy and you are the medicine that helps other people. And
Yeah.
the other way
And
around.
the
as
only
well.
way to create that medicine, I think the only way to create that medicine is to get in your body with it. Because your body is the container that holds all of the components for the medicine to come forth.
Yeah. And it's not so much, it's something that also keeps coming, it's not so much that you fix other people. That I think most times are done. We are not finding a guru or a teacher who is going to fix us. It's more a person who is able to hold the space for you to do your own inner work, and that's it. And then their only presence, you feel safe, and then you know that you can do it.
Yeah.
And you can be that, because it's not so much about doing things as being who we are. Yeah. So I would love you to share, because you mentioned the elements. How do you work with each element in your practice?
So obviously dance is a very big part of it. The way that I was taught to work with the elements is that I like to take them, to kind of pull them apart, knowing that I can't, you can never completely take them apart. Like earth, it will never completely be separated from water, air, fire, spirit. So we learned that earth is the physical. It is your body, the earthen container, but it's also everything physical. It's the computer, laptop that's you're watching. It's the phone in your hand. It's the table and the chair that you're sitting on. So in learning that these things are sacred, then we can proceed to water the emotions. And this is learning about that emotional realm of water is where I find that a lot of people are hung up, because there's a lot of stagnant, like water, when water has been sitting for a long time with no movement, it's dirty, it's yucky, and so it needs to be flushed, right? We need to clean it. And so I find that people who have not been able to express their emotions have made themselves, or have been told that they are bad or wrong or whatever for having this emotion, rather than being affirmed that, hey, you're human and you have permission to have the full range of emotions. This is where a lot of people are stuck, in that emotional realm, that water realm. Especially, I feel that with the masculine and feminine as well, where the masculine is not allowed to express certain emotions. There's only a certain, a few emotions that masculine body people are allowed to express, and feminine bodies can express this. And if you express this, then you're more feminine than all of that.
I have this saying. Wow.
It just gets us just gets us so mixed up, right? And that's where that water is stagnant. It's still, it needs to be cleaned, it needs to be cleared, so that we can get the freshness, right? Air is the thought realm. And I feel like this is an important point, because air impacts your emotions. Your thoughts impact your emotions. How you think about something ultimately impacts how you feel about something. So if you think, it's always going to be going bad for me, then you're going to feel like things are always going bad for you, right? It's just that's the connection. And then fire is that action and energy realm. Noticing how much energy you have to be able to do your work in the world, and how much energy you have, or you are expending for things that are not in alignment with who you are. Again, holding on to those emotions because of past beliefs, or somebody told you that you shouldn't feel like this, so you feel like you should hold on to this, and that dampens down our energies. So using my favorite tool, obviously, is to get people moving. And people feel really uncomfortable about that because of things that they've been told in the past about movement. So getting people moving, not necessarily dance where they have to have a certain amount of steps and you have to learn to move, but allowing them to move in a way that their body wants to. Helps to activate all of the elements, activates the earth, activates the water, activates air, fire, and activates their own spirit. They get to see, because spirit is the spiritual realm, our essence expression, our spirit, but also the spirit of the divine consciousness. And so when we move, a lot of times when I'm doing a movement, I will invite people to set an intention for themselves, just to see, just to be to come to it with curiosity. What would it look like if I allowed myself to move my body to express anger or sadness or joy or confusion? What would that look like? What would be freed up for me if I moved, if I allowed myself to open to that? What would it look like if I was successful? Let me move my body. What does success feel like in my body when I move with success? And then I also will set a group intention. I might pull a card and say, we're dancing to embody this. We're moving to embody this. And I use the term movement and dance kind of interchangeably, because again, some people feel like the word dance is kind of triggery because they were told dancing was wrong, dancing was this, dancing was that, but they're okay with movement. You have to move your hand to brush your hair, wash your teeth, do your teeth, put on your clothes. That's movement. We're just channeling it in a different direction. And so that's kind of some of the ways that I work with the elements. And then if people feel like, in tuning in and working in our workshops, if people feel like they are stuck on a particular element, they feel like they're not getting, that something's going on in their physical realm, they can't seem to get things moving in the physical, then we'll focus specifically. But then always bringing those things back into working with all of the elements so that we're working in wholeness.
Yes. It's very interesting what you were sharing with the water, because I have a similar experience with astrology. When I read the charts of people, the ones that they have many planets in water signs are the ones that I see. Those are always the ones that I focus more, because I notice that the person is not integrating that energy that much, because it's very hard. Like it's a lot of intuitions and feeling and psychic. When a person has a lot of water in their chart, they are meant to be psychic, and they're meant to receive messages from spirits that are not logical. And I keep seeing that is the struggle much more than air, fire, of air. Air, especially, is like we live in societies where air is very developed. Like we know how to be air. But we don't know how to be water. And and it's so fascinating. And even what you were saying about the movement also with the joy, is something that it also keeps coming, that when we move our bodies, many times is in a very structured way. Like dance, but you have a specific steps that you have to follow. Or you go to the gym and there is a specific set of exercises that you have to do. So we are not listening to the body. We are just kind of like forcing the body to do something. So it's a very different approach.
We're following a regularly scheduled programming.
So it's also the air kind of like forcing the earth to shape in a certain way. And how did you integrate the oracle reading within this work with movement?
So the oracle that I use is the Elemental Forces of Creation Oracle, and it is divided up into all of those elements. And so each of the cards has just a word on it. And so when a lot of the oracle readings that I do are very intuitive, and so when people come to me for the oracle readings, I'm usually able to tune into their energy, allow them to kind of bring that in so that we can really get to the heart of what it is, because they might come and say, oh yes, I want a reading for this, but there's actually something underneath that, and a lot of times they will let me in to get underneath that. And because we were able to get underneath and clear out the root of the problem, sometimes it's a specific element, but a lot of times we look at all of them together. This thing that they originally came to me for changes. Yeah.
Yes. So you do also private sessions, individual, one-on-one?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do private sessions. I do one-on-one coaching, and I do private sessions just for the oracle readings. And then I do group activities as well.
Okay. And how do you think this movement and connecting with our bodies and with this practice can help us to tune our inner compass?
So that allows us to find what is true north for us. Because you said when we use the compass, you need to find out which direction, right? Which direction you're facing, which direction is north, and which direction you want to go. And I think because we are, like we were talking about earlier, how we're getting away from that time where you go to the guru and the guru tells you what to do, that's somebody else telling you which direction to go. And that's that's giving all of what is inside for you to somebody else to say, here, make this make sense. Send this into a direction for me. Put me on the right direction. Thinking that there's only one right way because we are comparing our insides to what we see of the experts, right? And what I feel is important is because this allows you to have a more embodied, getting into your body, using movement with all of these other tools and practices, with the astrology, with the card reading, with the journaling, with the communication, the talking it out, all of these with the movement, helps you to really say, okay, here is this information that I am bringing into myself. Is it pointing me, my body, my spirit, in the direction that is necessary for what I need to bring in? Not because this guru said, oh, this is the one true way. Is this right for me? Is this pointing my compass to the way that I need to go? And I think the movement especially really helps to reactivate our compass. I've had one of my clients tell me she didn't even realize that she had a compass until I made her start moving. And she was one of the ones that really resisted it, did not want to move, did not want to have anything to do with it, and had a really major breakthrough, turned her life into a completely different direction than where she was going to begin with, because she opened up to the idea of, what if I could trust myself to know what's best for me, instead of thinking that someone outside of me must know better because of what I'm thinking, that they look successful, so they must know better than me.
That's so profound, and it's so important, because it's like I feel that's the way to move forward as a human family, as you said before, that we, each one of us, tap into your own power, our own inner guidance, and then there's no competition, because what we bring is different. So if I co-create with you, what I'm bringing or what you're bringing is different. So we grow together instead of comparing each other, putting everyone in boxes that this is the way that it needs to look like, because what each one of us is bringing is unique. So nobody else did it before you. So for the people who are listening, it's like nobody else did. No, you are the one who has to do it.
And we get to celebrate each other. Like, I feel like when we celebrate each other's accomplishments, when we celebrate someone realizing the fullness of themselves, then that gives me permission to elevate to the fullness of myself. Because I firmly believe that what is for me is for me, what is for you is for you, and there's nothing that you can do that can take what is for me, and there's nothing that I can do that can take for what is for you.
So then, and I don't know, I seriously see that as the key to solve so many problems, because it's like one person in isolation cannot do anything anymore. We do need to co-create, we do need to co-work, and there is no competition anymore. It's just not, it's a very masculine way of seeing things. And the masculine, a toxic masculine, right? Because the masculine doesn't have to be that way. It's just like in the patriarchal societies, how we have developed masculinity, but doesn't mean that it has to be that way.
It doesn't have to be that way. Exactly. That's exactly it.
And that is something that it also came to my attention when you were talking about men, like people with the masculine bodies, that for them it's also very difficult because they are less allowed to express vulnerability, especially. So it's something that is very important, that we allow our children to cry and we allow our men to cry, because they need to. There is so much sadness inside. They need to.
Absolutely need to. There's some, I wish I could find the study. There was a study that was done about 15, 20 years ago, and they discovered that there are certain toxins that are in the body that can only be released through tears. We cannot release them through sweating. We cannot release them any other way. They have to come out through tears. So we're talking about the toxic masculinity. Well, when is the last time they were able to have a good cry to release some of that toxicity?
It's something that is very dear to my heart always, because I have seen it very strongly, and I think there is less work with men in that sense, and it's something that if anybody is having that call, for me it's something that I have. So I'm very called to work with men, and also for men to work with men as well. So they create circles of men where they are allowed to be vulnerable, when they are allowed to express their feelings, when they support each other in that sense that they don't have to be always the alpha, strong protector. They don't need to be that all the time.
Absolutely. So important. That's the important learning there. That's really the important learning.
Yes. So if anybody who is listening to us, because I always believe when something comes, it's because there is someone who needs to receive the message, right? So if anybody is listening to us, who is feeling that also, it's important to go as well in that direction, to for men to have these
Yeah.
spaces. Yeah. And what do you think will be for people who want to work with you? And we will have the website and everything below the video, but anything that you would like to share, you already share of how do you work with people, but anything else that is important in your work that you would like to share?
Well, I would just like to share that one, wherever you are right now on your personal journey, if you're listening to my voice, you are right where you're supposed to be. If something that has been talked about in our interview today has touched you, that was for you specifically. Listen to that, honor that, and I would invite you to move with it. Don't just sit there and journal it. I would really invite you to put on tune in. What are you feeling right now as you're listening to this interview? And then as soon as push pause even, and put on a piece of music and move your body. Allow your body to experience the full range of what you are thinking, so that you can bring that down into your body and bring it out into your life. Because honestly, we cannot wait to see what you will do with all of this information that's being transmitted to you. We want you to activate it. We need you. We can't do it alone. We need to do it together. And we want to celebrate you taking this work further, because when we do this in our communities, it goes further than we could have possibly done by ourselves.
Yes, yes. And you also have a free gift that is,
Yes.
because we wanted to share also like a movement practice, but then it's not been possible in the interview.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people can have access to that.
Yeah, so if you go to my website, you will receive Dance the Body Divine, and it is a 5-day movement practice to connect you to the elements and the divine feminine. Each day has a different element that I talk about, and gives you some information about it, and as well as a few journaling prompts and a movement practice to really embody working with that particular goddess and working with that element. And then at the end of the 5 days, you will have this lovely experience of how to connect movement into your personal practices.
Beautiful. Yeah, perfect. So any final thoughts that you would like to share before we conclude?
I just want to send just a blessing, one to you for putting this wonderful event together. There are so many amazing people that you've gathered, and so I just thank you deeply for allowing me to be a part of it. And I'm just sending lots of blessings to all of the people who are watching and receiving this too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you everyone for listening to us. Thank you for being who you are, for your energy, and the planet needs you. We all need you. So it's our responsibility to be who we are. So yeah, there's no better person than you. And yeah, together we are more. So thank you so much, Dionne, for all your words.
Thank you.
And I encourage everyone to check more on your work and to go deeper in their own process. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.